Happy Tuesday, everybody. We are back after some holiday time. Hope everybody had a good long weekend if you are in Canada or the US. And today we are going to get into a talk about sweeteners and different types of sugars, what to avoid, the good, bad, the ugly, all that. But before we get started, we're going to just quickly introduce ourselves for those of you who are new to our community. My name is Jessica Melnick. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist, the founder of the Anti-Arthritis Method, the host of the Happy Joints Arthritis Solutions Group, and I help both women and men with various forms of arthritis get back to living life the way they choose to, not the way they have to. And I reside in Saskatchewan, Canada, where the sun has finally broken through the smoke today. We have had many days of smoke from forest fires. It's been pretty dark here and kind of like an orange, eerie sky. So I think I'm going to get out for a walk after this because, like I said, this is the first day I've seen the sun in, oh gosh, it's been at least 5 days. So, yes, it's been an unusual summer. And I'm going to pass it on to Casey.
Yeah, talk about seasonal depression
Weird.
in the summertime. I am Casey Kephart. I'm the founder of the Feel Good Formula. I'm a functional medicine nutritionist, and I help women with all different types of autoimmune diseases get you back to the activities you love to do, trash those symptoms, get your life back, basically. And I reside in St. Petersburg, Florida, where it's just hot every day now. And we just got through a hurricane. All is good over here. I know some other parts are not, but I'm very thankful that everything was okay on my end. Mother Nature just loves this summer. For I feel like everybody, it's Mother Nature has something to do with some sort of disaster, fires, or just raging heat that we're all not used to, and hurricanes. I think Mother Nature needs a diet plan, maybe.
She's cranky this year, unfortunately.
She's cranky, yeah.
Oh, what can we do, right?
Right.
I guess start with focusing on ourselves and what we can do to help ourselves feel better. And one of those big things is sugars and sweeteners. So I think we all know, unless you've been hiding away, that sugar is not the best for us. It creates inflammation, among other things. And so we're going to look at some natural sweeteners, natural sugars that are lower glycemic, that aren't going to shoot your blood sugar right up, things that you can have in moderation, and some of the artificial stuff that you really should avoid because it's just not good for us. So to start off, we're going to talk about using things like even healthier sugars in moderation, because bad bacteria in our guts love to feed off sugar. So even healthier sugars, and we're going to go into what those are, but we want to make sure that we're not overdoing it even on the lower glycemic, healthier, natural sweeteners. So these things can cause candida, which can lead to other issues like leaky gut, yeast infections, urinary tract infections, really affect our mood. Having blood sugar swings, that's no fun for anybody. And that often leads to fatigue. If you've ever had too much sugar and then later you have that sugar crash, that blood sugar crash, that doesn't feel good. It can create mitochondrial damage. So that's the energy centers that reside in our cells. So we want those to be healthy so that we can have energy. And again, it can cause that intestinal dysbiosis, which is really just an imbalance of bad bacteria over the good bacteria. We want at least 80%, I think it is, good bacteria in there so that they are running the show. So first off, let's look at some natural sweeteners that we can use in moderation. So let's look at monk fruit. Monk fruit, I think, is fairly new and popular the last few years. I would say that it reminds me similar to stevia, like it is from a plant. I don't know tons about it, but when you're looking for a source, you want to get something that is pure, preferably without erythritol. Now, erythritol has become really popular, especially in like the keto baking space. And I think it's one of those gray areas where, some people say it's it's okay to use in moderation. Some people say absolutely not, that it actually reacts like alcohol in our body, which can, create inflammation of our gut. So if you can stick to pure monk fruit, I'd say it's similar to stevia in that small amounts go a long way. Very, very sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Is fairly pricey in the pure form, but like I said, you don't need a whole lot. Another one that is very natural, excuse me, is honey. So when we're looking at honey, don't go and get the liquid squeezable honey in the little bear at the supermarket. You want something that is raw and unpasteurized, and that's because all the nutrients are in honey when it's raw and unpasteurized. When you pasteurize it, you're not only you're killing everything off, you're killing off all the nutrition. Honey itself has antibacterial properties on its own, so it doesn't need to be pasteurized. I think the only thing that really needs to happen is it just needs to be strained of any kind of debris that might be in it from being in the beehive. So I'm going to pass it on to Casey for a couple. If you wanted to add to any of those things that I touched on, if I missed anything.
Yeah. With the erythritol, going back to that, like you said, it's a pretty gray area. I do know a lot of people do not do well on it, including myself, and that is evidence enough that something is happening with the body with erythritol because it is not something we used to eat in Paleolithic times. It is not natural, right? So I know a lot of people with erythritol run straight to the bathroom, as do I. So you'll want to be careful with how many amounts of erythritol you're having if you do get it in your stevia, your monk fruit, or are eating keto products, because it has a lot of erythritol in it, and it's mainly the first or second ingredient in those types of foods, like keto pancake mix, keto brownie bars, keto cereals. You need to sweeten that up, and that's what they use. So just be careful of that. And I think it does do something to your insulin as well. Again, this is a gray area, and we're not super up on the science of erythritol, but just be mindful. So another one would be pure maple syrup. So this is not Aunt Jemima, even though she looks pretty cool in that bottle. This is not the sugar-free maple syrup, which again will get you running to the bathroom, and it tricks your insulin response as well, which is something we really don't want to screw with in your body. So this is also not corn syrup. This is pure maple syrup. Basically, put a tap on a maple tree and suck the syrup out of it. That is pure maple syrup. I know there's grade A's and grade B's. I don't know that much into syrup, but get the ones that aren't filled with the chemicals, the cut with water and cut with cane sugar, high fructose corn syrup. If you need to look on the ingredient label to make sure that it is pure maple syrup, please do so, because it will tell you what it is cut with. It won't just say maple syrup, as it should. It should have one ingredient, and if you can get organic pure maple syrup, that would be even better for you. But I know there's a lot of health benefits to pure maple syrup, and I can't think of them right now. But I do know that it does have some beneficial effects for the body, of course, in moderation. And of course, we don't want to spike our glucose too much with this either. Pure maple syrup is one of those that can really spike the glucose response. So if you are very reactive to that, that is something I would really make sure that we're keeping in check. Stevia. So this was kind of talked about with the monk fruit, but stevia comes from a plant. It is supposed to be pretty healthy, although there is some controversy about that right now in the paleo field, in that it might be affecting some insulin responses that we don't want, and it might be affecting some inflammatory cells as well, if I remember correctly. So if this is something you're consuming every day in like everyday coffee, everyday yogurt, and we just keep adding it to all of these products every day, this is where those probably benefits become not benefits anymore, right? But if we're using a tiny amount in our coffee in the morning or whatever, our yogurt, fine. It should be fine. Um, Stevia is also something you want in very small doses because it is very, very sweet. And it's not a very, very good sweet like it would be to take a spoonful of brown sugar and eat that. This is a totally different caliber. So use a very little bit for health benefits and for just taste wise as well. You want to make sure that your stevia is not cut with erythritol, though, or maltodextrin. There's no cornstarch in it. Flavorings. It literally should say on the bottle, stevia. That is it. And I know that we try to look for the cheaper brands or the one that's most convenient or most marketed, but those are often the ones that are cut with erythritol, cut with maltodextrin or dextrose. And those are the nasty ones. We don't want those. We want to stay away from that. It is chemicals, man-made, causes inflammation. Again, so look on your ingredient labels for all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's look at maple sugars, date syrup. There's coconut sugars and coconut nectar, which is essentially coconut syrup. These are all derivatives of the liquid form. So maple sugar is basically like a dehydrated version of maple syrup. I would say it has a similar flavor. It's not super common where I'm from. Coconut sugar, I find much more readily. It does not taste like coconut to me at all. It would be similar to brown sugar, just a little bit drier. It works great in baking as a replacement for brown sugar or cane sugar. You might need to add a little bit more moisture to your baking if you're replacing brown sugar with coconut sugar, but it's very similar. It's not going to shoot your insulin and blood sugar levels up really high. Um, Same with date sugar. It would be, I think, similar to coconut sugar as well. And you can also get it in syrup form, just like maple syrup. And coconut nectar is also kind of similar to maple syrup, except it's made from coconut. And again, I've tried it before. It doesn't actually taste like coconut. So
No.
if you don't like coconut, you don't want that taste in your baking, don't worry. It's not going to taste like that at all. Now, let's look at some sweeteners and sugars to avoid. I know, especially in the last several years, we know that high fructose corn syrup is a doozy for our blood sugar. That is awful for us if we want to, keep our blood sugar stable. High fructose corn syrup is going to wreak havoc on our body. It's going to make us produce a ton of insulin. And when we do that, we are more likely to store things as fat in our body. And it's also just really hard on our system. And so we don't want you to become pre diabetic or diabetic. And if you are pre diabetic or diabetic, you want to avoid high fructose corn syrup like the plague. Read labels. If you buy anything that is packaged, whether it is in the freezer section of the grocery store or it's in a bottle or it's in a carton, you want to make sure that it does not have corn syrup in there. Avoid that absolutely like the plague. Same thing with plain white cane sugar and brown sugar. Brown sugar is just white sugar with some molasses added to it. Again, this is going to shoot your blood sugar through the roof. Your body is going to be producing and pumping out insulin like no tomorrow because that's what your body is going to do in response to those things. So those other sugars, the healthier alternatives like the maple syrup, pure maple syrup, honey, coconut sugar, those aren't going to give your body that same response. They are lower glycemic. You're going to have a much slower rise in blood sugar and insulin than you would with the plain sugars and the high fructose corn syrup. And Casey, did you want to talk a little bit about the Splendas and the Sweet and Lows?
Yeah, definitely. I love talking about those. But I want to piggyback off of what you just said in differentiating high fructose corn syrup and plain white sugar versus the things that we listed above is that the things like stevia, maple sugar, maple syrup, and honey, and all the other things, they have some nutrients in it that you are still absorbing. With the high fructose corn syrup and the cane sugar, just pure white refined sugar, brown sugar, these don't have any nutrients in them. They are all stripped out and either fortified to make it sweeter or just literally just provide you with glucose, which is sugar. So at least you're getting some benefit out of the above sweeteners versus the high fructose corn syrup, the white sugar, the brown sugar. So I just wanted to lay that out there too. With your artificial sugars like Splenda, the red packets, the pink packets, the blue packets, and the yellow packets that we have seen since we've been a kid sitting at a diner. These are horrible for your body. They are man-made. They are chemicals. Our body does not recognize them as anything nutritious or doesn't even know how to really what to do with it in the body. And the biggest impact that I've read about is that it tricks your insulin response. So, when we consume brown sugar, right? It spikes our glucose, it spikes our insulin to take care of the glucose, and then it all goes down back to normal. That's a normal, healthy response if you're not pre-diabetic or diabetic. When it does the same thing, your insulin response does the same thing with artificial sugar. It spikes that insulin, but now we just have insulin going in our bloodstream with no glucose to take care of. It can't do its response. So we just have this haywire insulin going on, and that is so unhealthy for our body. And it's teaching your body something very unhealthy. So stay away from them. Use any of the alternative forms that we're talking about today instead of these packets. If you're going to drink a Coke, and I really hope you're not going to, but if you do, please drink the regular Coke. Do not drink the Diet Coke. It is worse for you than the regular Coke, the regular Sprite, the regular Dr. Pepper, whatever you have. For that reason, the insulin can actually grab onto a glucose molecule versus the insulin is just going haywire and not doing anything in your body, but destroying your cells and your arteries and your skin and everything else. So I hope that makes sense. The next one on our list is Truvia. I don't know much science about this, but it is still artificial. It is still man-made, chemical-made, providing inflammation in our body. And it's also cut with a lot of nasty crap that shouldn't even be there.
It's stevia, but it's not pure stevia. It's mixed with a bunch of artificial stuff. So yeah, we definitely don't want to use that.
Yeah. Agave. A lot of us think that agave is very good for us. I know in a lot of healthy cookbooks and recipes, it does tell us to use agave over pure honey. It's found that agave has spikes your insulin or spikes your glucose more than regular honey will. I think agave also strips some of the nutrients out too. Jessica, do you know more about this than I do?
I don't know that much about if it strips nutrients. All I know is that it is really high glycemic. So even though it is natural, I believe that because of how it's refined to get it into like the syrup form, that it just is too high glycemic. So even though it isn't like as refined as like a cane sugar, our body would have like a similar response to it in terms like insulin wise.
Okay. Yeah. So if you have any comments or opinions or questions about this, please put it in the comments. We're happy to respond back or direct message us about this. The key to this, though, is not to tell you to eat sugar, and it's okay just with those 6 that we gave you. We always want to use this in moderation, and if you're going to eat sugar, at least do it more smart. And let's not make our inflammation worse than it already is with having arthritis and an inflammatory autoimmune disease.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for listening, you guys. I will be back later this week with a recipe, and have a wonderful week until then.
Bye, everybody.